Hey everybody, Dirili here. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Hakuouki Demon of the Fleeting Blossom. We are on Hajime Soto's route. And for once we had a good place to end off and split. I believe we're making our way to Kofu Castle? Well, let's see if my memory serves me right or not. You can just sit back, relax, and let me read you a story. It was the end of February. The Shinsengumi changed its name to Koya Regulatory Company and left Edo for Kofu. Sanen and Heisuke were ordered to remain behind. I assumed I'd be left in Edo as well, but for some reason Hijikata ordered me to accompany the Koyo Regulatory Company to Kofu. I departed with Saito, and in many ways it seemed as if nothing much had changed. Well, there was one change. And what is that? Ah, the outfits, that's right.
Man, I never thought I would see the day I march into battle in Western clothes, you know? I guess this is what happens when you get old.
I know the feeling well.
Well, Hijikata does like new things. I guess if the guys we're fighting are dressed like this, maybe we should give it a shot. Maybe it'll help.
Why would fashion help?
It's kinda hard to get used to, though. I mean, I'm still not sure I get these things. They're called buttons, I think?
Along with the change in name, Hijikata had ordered everyone to begin wearing Western clothes. From what I could tell, it felt quite a bit different from the clothes they were used to, and most of the men seemed a little uncomfortable. I glanced over at Saito. Saito, how do your new clothes feel? Are they hard to move in?
No, not really.
I guess you keep things closed with those, buttons, right?
So it would seem.
Saito was as new to the clothes as anyone else, but they seemed to suit him. Wait. Saito, it looks like you have 2 extra buttons over here.
I assume it's how it's made. Who am I to guess at Western style?
But it looks like there are 2 extra holes for buttons over on this side. I think maybe you buttoned it wrong. Saito looked silently down at his buttons and examined them for a moment.
I'll fix it later.
Aw, we made him blush with that. Oh, Chizuru, why'd you have to embarrass him? I'm so sorry. If it doesn't bother you, then I'm sure it's fine. There wasn't really a graceful way to admit that one had dressed oneself improperly. Actually, I haven't seen Kondo around in a while. Did he go somewhere? Nagakura's voice was bitter.
Oh, he probably just hasn't caught up to us yet. I bet he's still getting drunk with some of those new guys in Hino. Damn it. What the hell's he thinking? We're going to war, not on vacation. Hey, lay off a little, alright? I'm sure the guy just wants to see his family. He hasn't been home in a while. Who wouldn't want to go boast about their success a little? He can drink and boast all he wants. I just think there might be a better time for it, you know?
There was some awkward shuffling and mumbling from the troops. I glanced over at Saito as discreetly as I could manage to try and gauge what he thought of Nagakura's outburst. He said nothing, of course, but his brow was furrowed, and it seemed clear that he was deep in thought. I was about to ask him what about when Hijikata spoke.
You okay, Chizuru? Tired?
Huh? Oh no, I'm fine.
Sorry for bringing you along.
No, I wanted to go with you guys. Oh, it's nothing. I paused for a moment, then decided I might as well ask. He'd started the conversation after all. Is it really alright for me to come? I'm worried that I might be in the way once the fighting starts. Hijikata's mouth thinned. He stroked his jaw for a few moments, thinking before he replied.
I wanted to leave you back in Edo, but it's too dangerous to leave you back there at the mansion. Probably safer for you on the battlefield, ironically.
And with the demons and all? Dangerous? I didn't understand what he meant. Why would the Shinsengumi headquarters be dangerous?
You mean Sanen? Yeah. He's been acting weird lately. Like, maybe he's lost it.
I didn't want to say anything, but I'd noticed Sanen acting strange as well.
Could have left you there, but if something bad happened, that would have been not good. Bringing you with us wasn't ideal, but it was better than the alternative. Sorry if it's been rough for you.
Oh no, not at all. Please don't worry about me. I suspected there might be more to it than that, but Hijikata seemed to have a lot on his mind, and now probably wasn't the best time to press for more detailed answers.
Commander, there's something I need to tell you. What is it, Saito? Shinpachi and Sano have expressed some concerns about the Kofu battle, especially regarding Chief Kondo's actions.
Hijikata's smile was somewhat bitter.
Concerns. That's a polite way to put it. Yeah, I saw that too. We're about to go to war, and the chief's out getting plastered. Seems pretty natural to get pissed off. But these days, we don't get new men just by putting out a sign saying we're looking for fresh blood. Sometimes you need a bribe. Sometimes you need to lubricate things with a bit of drink. And a few hints about tons of cash.
What? I didn't know much about how to run an army or gather warriors, but how could they expect men who'd been bribed to fight for good, just like the rest of the men in the Shinsengumi?
If I might be so bold, Commander, do you think we can win here?
Another bitter smile.
Damn it, you keep asking me stuff I don't want to answer. Judging by how we lost at Tobofushimi and the morale on the other side right now, I'd say we've got our work cut out for us. The shogunate gave us some guns and cannons for this one, but to hear the other side's got some brand new stuff straight from Europe. I don't know how effective our guns will be against that. The shogunate's men haven't been outside of Edo in months. They don't know what kind of guns the Imperial Army's got. Or they do know, but they don't want to admit they can't match it. Or they've got other intentions.
So many possibilities.
Then, is the battle already lost? Well, we're gonna fight our hardest, and I sure as hell don't want Kondo to have to lose any more battles, but they got more men, they got better guns. Facts are, it doesn't look good for us.
Hijikata looked up at the sky for a moment, his eyes empty, before he turned towards us.
Can't say this to Shinpachi or Sanosuke though, right? I'm sure they figured it out already, but they'd never say it. Even I'm not heartless enough to rub it in their faces.
He gave a dry, humorless laugh. Never before had I seen Hijikata so completely devoid of confidence. They were expected to fight and win, even when victory was impossible. Saito nodded quietly.
I understand what you mean. You're quite accomplished at playing the villain. It's my job.
It's his job to be the bad guy. I had trouble sleeping that night. My mind kept running over what Hijikata had said. After a good amount of tossing and turning, I noticed that Saito had quietly gotten out of bed and snuck out of camp. Where are you going? Was there something wrong? Perhaps he had business to attend to, and it would be best for me to just leave him alone. Yeah, what if he's just going to the bathroom? After several minutes of thought, I decided that was not the case, and that I should at least try and see what he's up to. Trying to be a ninja again. It didn't take me long to find him. He'd moved far enough away from the camp that he wouldn't be seen, and then stopped to stare up at the sky. The stars hung there, so large and bright, that it felt as if their weight might pull them from the sky to come raining down to the earth. His face was as expressionless as ever, but somehow he looked sad. Oh! Caught up in the scene before me, I had forgotten stealth, and my hand brushed against a nearby bush, rustling its leaves. Another ninja fail.
Who's there?
His voice was like steel.
I'll give you 10 seconds to show yourself before I cut you in half.
He thought I was an enemy soldier. Well, 10 seconds is plenty of time, Chizuru. Get out there. Wait, it's just me. I ran out from my hiding spot, and Saito's eyebrows shot up. Then he frowned.
Why are you here by yourself? I thought you'd learned your lesson, but clearly I was mistaken.
I'm not out here by myself, I'm out here with you. I'm sorry. I couldn't fall asleep. I've just got so much on my mind. And then I saw you get up and leave, so... He looked down at me, his face flat and unreadable. I braced myself for another lecture, but instead he fell silent and turned back to the night sky. What are you doing out here? Are you taking a walk or something? He didn't answer. His eyes narrowed, almost as if the light from the stars was too bright for him to look at. I felt sure his heart was full of feelings that he couldn't put to words, and he was struggling to sort them out with himself, to say nothing of me. I felt wrong to interrupt his calm, but there was something on my mind that I had to ask. What do you think about what Hijikata said earlier?
What do you mean?
Well, if he's right, then we're going to lose this battle.
I have no doubt that he is right.
My eyes widened.
Our guns are old and outdated. They're no match for the modern weapons the Imperial Army is carrying. The new men we've recruited barely know how to fire a gun. Even if we had modern weapons, they'd be next to useless.
Then, what about swords?
Do you really think a man who was killed would be free to wander the streets as he pleased? Perhaps he could swing a stick well in the training hall, but that's of little use on the battlefield. Skill is irrelevant. What matters is the ability to kill another man.
He was right. No number of inexperienced soldiers could make up for even a few hardened veterans. My heart sank, just as it had when Hijikata had told us he didn't think we could win. Aren't you scared, Saito? I mean, you're going into a fight you can't win. You might die. I didn't know if there was much of a point in asking him. Saito had seen battle many times, and each one could have meant his death. Though I could scarcely understand why, the look on his face suggested that he feared neither the upcoming battle nor death.
Dying in of itself does not frighten me.
His tone was as indifferent as ever.
What I do fear is losing sight of what I believe in.
What do you mean by that? He was silent for a few moments before he turned to look at me.
Do you know what another name for a warrior is?
You mean like samurai? He shook his head.
A left hand. A warrior carries his sword on the left. A samurai carrying his sword will always walk on the left side, no matter how narrow the street is. They do this to keep anyone from touching their sword. A warrior's soul is in his sword.
Isn't Saito left-handed? Huh? But don't you... Saito's sword was hanging from his right hip, just as it always did. I never thought about it before, but Saito was the only person I knew who carried his sword on the right side and drew with his left hand.
I was born left-handed. No dojo would accept me, and I've never earned any certificate of swordsmanship. The moment I would pick up the fencing stick, they'd tell me I had no talent, and try to change the way I held my sword every time. But no man that told me that ever defeated me. The senior students, the masters, no matter how impressive their titles, they all lost to me, a nameless heretic. What is the meaning of true strength, then? I thought about that a great deal in those days.
His voice had changed. I could hear emotion in it now, something he rarely let show. If you don't think about it anymore, does that mean you found an answer? Saito fell silent again. He pulled his sword from its scabbard and watched it shine in the moonlight.
It's easy. You duel with real swords, and the man who wins is stronger. Simple. Easy. But we have had peace for more than 200 years. Fewer and fewer samurai wish to duel. Even so, I felt that the soul of the samurai could be found only in battle, and without wars, that meant one must duel.
Saito's eyes reflected in the blade of his sword were like twin pools of solid night. I felt a chill run down my spine.
I discovered quickly enough that I was alone, or nearly so, in my opinions. Before the Shinsengumi was formed, I was challenged to a duel by a man apprenticed to a Hatamoto. I accepted and killed him.
What? Anyone connected to the Hatamoto would be awfully important if he killed someone like that.
I was challenged to a duel. I won. He lost. That victory apparently meant nothing, however, as I was treated like a murderer and forced to leave the domain.
That's not right, especially when he was the one who was challenged.
A warrior's purpose is to kill. But when he fulfills that purpose, he is called a criminal. How can a contradiction possibly be resolved? I spent many hours considering that question.
And war is the only answer? To Saito, the word warrior held a great deal of meaning, but he had struggled to find other men who shared his belief. He had amazing command of a rare and powerful technique, and yet everyone he met refused to recognize his strength. All the rejections had forced him to question just what his most closely held beliefs meant. What was true strength? What did it mean to be a warrior? I felt I was beginning to understand him.
I left my domain and escaped to Kyoto. There, at last, I found a place where I could become a warrior. The men of the Shinsengumi were willing to kill those who stood against them. They fought so that they might survive. That was what I felt a warrior should be. It was the first time I had met anyone I felt I could talk to as a fellow warrior.
That was why the Shinsengumi meant so much to him.
Of all the men in the Shinsengumi, I imagine Soji or myself has killed the most men. But no matter how many we kill, we see only fear or resentment in the faces of those we protect. Never once have we been shown gratitude.
You have by me.
I have spent many years sharpening my claws, but now they will be useless. I can see that all too clearly.
He turned the sword over and over in his hands, his eyes fixed on the blade. That blade was thinner than the swords most other warriors carried. Saito's sword had seen even more use than theirs, and he sharpened it ceaselessly. Eventually, the blade would become too thin to use, and he would be forced to buy a new one. How many had he gone through, I wondered?
This, the well-honed edge of this claw, is proof of all my victories. A bloody weapon that has never seen defeat.
I understood then why Saito had drunk the water of life. To protect me, yes, but there was much more to it. To him, loss would have meant more than just death. It would have meant the skill he'd worked so hard to develop and the respect he fought so hard to earn would mean nothing. How could they, if that skill failed him?
Time has changed. Men have foregone swords in favor of shooting their enemies with Western guns.
Ah, the shame of the world. History was so much cooler when it was all about swords. He pursed his lips and slid his blade back into its scabbard. To Saito, his sword was proof that he was alive, and that his life carried some meaning. But there was a new era on the horizon, where a man's skill with the sword would matter little. That was what he feared, more than becoming a fury, more than death itself. He was afraid that his life as a warrior was coming to an end. Understandably, that seemed to be making him uneasy. What could I say to him? Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Maybe there will be a time we don't need warriors. Hijikata had said that the overwhelming strength of the Imperial Army's guns was too much for the men armed with swords. Saito's face fell. But even if warriors and swords aren't needed anymore, I don't think that means you won't be needed anymore.
What do you mean?
I wasn't quite sure what to make of his tone, but I pushed ahead. You said that your sword is just for cutting people, that it's a bloody thing. But I don't think so. I think it can also help people. After all, you saved me so many times. At Tobu Fushimi, and when we ran into my father at Edo. If you hadn't been there, I'm sure I would have died. I'd never faced death with a sword in my hand the way he had, and so I knew my words would likely carry little impact. After all, what did I know of being a warrior? But even so, I hope they might do something. So, what I'm saying is, I really appreciate all that you've done for me. I can't do much, but I can say thank you, so thank you. Even if someday the world decides warriors are useless, I'll never think you're useless. You saved my life. Saito stared at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. We looked at one another for several long seconds before he turned and descended once again into thought. Had I said something wrong? Oh. Ah! I felt Saito's thin, sinewy hands on my cheeks. He looked into my eyes, his own as deep as a starless night. Is something wrong, Saito? But he didn't answer. He simply stood there, staring into my eyes, as if he were looking for something.
Your eyes are so genuine. I see no lies or untruths. You've spoken from the heart, from the soul. When I first visited Shiei Hall and sparred against the students there, I heard many times that I was strong. When they spoke, their eyes looked as yours do now. When I saw their honesty, I thought perhaps I had at last reached a place where I could find my true path.
His voice was as quiet and flat as always, but in his eyes I saw a faint spark of relief. I smiled to myself. Then maybe you should trust them more. They saw strength in you when no one else did. Even if you can't carry swords anymore, I don't think they'll ever abandon you. His eyes went wide, and he stared at me for a moment before his mouth twisted into an awkward smile.
Yes, it is that simple, isn't it?
What?
Thank you, Chizuru. I think you've helped me to glimpse something I couldn't see before. It's still hidden, but it's there.
Gratitude sounded strange on his tongue, but there was no questioning that it was genuine. His hands lingered on my face a moment longer, and then he slowly drew them back.
Few men are willing to put their lives on the line these days, even when their shogun orders them to.
It was true, but one could hardly lay all the blame on the soldiers. After all, the shogun himself had abandoned the troops at the first sign of trouble, and even the predecessor daimyo had turned their backs on the shogunate.
But at Tobu Fushimi, Shinpachi volunteered to lead the attack, knowing full well it could mean his death. Kondo returned to the front lines the very moment its injured shoulder had healed, and Hijikata prepares even now to do battle in the shogun's name, knowing he cannot win. Neither Kondo nor Hijikata come from samurai blood, and yet they are truer warriors than many who have been given the title of samurai. Perhaps it is deeds that make a warrior, a way of life, not a position to be won.
His voice wasn't the same indifferent tone I'd heard so many times before. There was something more to it as he spoke, as if it were for just a moment. The mask had lifted, and the honest beating heart of the man called Hajime Saito could be seen. For as long as I'd known him, I'd seen Saito as serious and single-minded, the sort of man who never lost his way or questioned his purpose. But for now, it seemed, I was beginning to see the side of him that was, for lack of a better word, human.
It's almost dawn. We should return.
You're right. The insects chirped and hummed from the trees as we made our way back to camp. We were nearly there when... No, not now. Saito stopped suddenly, his face twisted with pain. Saito, what's wrong? I ran to him, and he leaned heavily against a nearby tree, his fingers digging into the bark. His teeth ground, and his breath sounded strangled. As I watched, he began to sweat. My stomach pitched as I realized what it was. Do you want blood? I have to make him endure it, so I think we're probably off for a bad end soon. What was I going to do? Should I give him blood to calm him down, or the medicine?
It's all right. This isn't the first time this has happened. It will pass soon enough.
His face was devoid of color and soaked in sweat, but still he insisted that everything was fine. Oh. No, my poor Saito. A spasm shook his body, and he dropped to his knees, wheezing. Saito, hang in there! I knelt and wrapped my arms around him, trying to keep his body upright. His whole body shook, and his breath came in ragged gasps. His fingers dug into his chest so deeply it looked as if he were about to tear out his own heart. I'd never seen Saito like this, and given how stoic he usually was, the pain had to be incredible. He wasn't all right at all. In only minutes, his groans had grown more tortured. There was no doubt that the pain was getting worse, not better. I wanted desperately to do something, anything, but all I could do was hold him and pray for the pain to go away. The march continued without any other major incidents until we finally reached Kofu Castle.
So, Kofu Castle's in the enemy's hands. Has been for a long time.
His face was hard.
Well, we could have gotten here a lot earlier if someone hadn't been out drinking and partying. Shut it, Shinpachi. Nobody could have guessed that they'd get here so quick.
Oh, it's the first time I've seen Shimada in Western clothes.
Unfortunately, once they heard what had happened, most of the men ran off sometime last night. We've only got about 100 left.
Oh, that's like nothing. We'd left Edo with almost 300 men. That's so many of them would desert before the battle had even begun. I tried to swallow my anxiety and turned to Saito. Saito, what's going to happen now? Are you going to try and take back the castle? Saito kept his voice low so that the other men couldn't hear.
A victory would be impossible. Even for the vaguest hope at victory, we would need at least 3 times as many men as our opponent. To ensure victory, we would need at least 10. And that assumes we have similar weaponry. If we will be fighting men armed like the forces we saw during Toba Fushimi, we would need even more than 10 times their number.
Then... All eyes turned to Kondo. There was a tense silence before he finally spoke.
We will not retreat. Find a good location to get into battle formation. We'll see what the enemy does. What the hell? The Shogun gave us money to mount this campaign. We can't simply turn around and return to Edo with our tails between our legs. How could we face the men who put their trust in us? Are you not samurai? Now is your perfect opportunity to demonstrate your loyalty to our Lord Yoshinobu.
Several of the men who had just recently joined cheered at Kondo's words.
That's more like it, Chief. Just leave it to us. We'll give it everything we've got.
The Gakura didn't even hear them.
Look, Kondo, go ahead and act like a hero if that's what does it for you, but I think you need a reality check. They might not have realized we're here yet, but they've already taken the castle. We're in a really bad spot here, no 2 ways about it.
Kondo frowned.
Nagakura, do you only fight battles you know you can win? Is that sword just for show? I'm not saying I'm scared of a fight, I just don't want to throw my life away in a fight we can't win.
Fists began to clench when Hijikata spoke up.
Calm down, Shinpachi. We have reserves back in Edo. I'll go get them immediately. Besides, I think the rebels are still in the dark about us. So long as we keep quiet, things should be fine. Just give us a little while, alright?
Nagakura grumbled unintelligibly to himself, but he lowered his fists and stepped back.
Fine. I can't really say no to that without looking like a complete asshole.
In a matter of minutes, Hijikata was on his way back to Edo for reinforcements, and the rest of us settled down to wait. Fortunately, the men in the castle either hadn't noticed us or didn't care, and didn't attack. If they had, I had no doubt we'd have been annihilated before Hijikata could return. Everyone was alert, but we still had only 100 men, which meant guards and lookouts were in short supply. Saito, are you alright? You don't look very good.
I'm fine.
His skin was pale, and he looked as if he was only moments from collapsing. No, you're anything but fine. You need to rest.
If we were anywhere else, I would. But I can't let down my guard here. This could become a battlefield at any moment.
That's true, but... It was the middle of the day, and the sun beat down on anything not hidden by the shade of the trees. Saito shouldn't even be awake, let alone preparing for battle. If fighting actually broke out, I swallowed hard and tried to put that thought from my mind.
Enemy troops are coming this way. What? Are they all to us? How many are there? I think about 10. They look like they're out on patrol. Yeah, I can see them. Well, looks like we got lucky. No guns. Damn it. Well, come on. We need to get in there.
Nagakura and Harada grabbed their swords and ran toward the approaching men. The enemy soldiers drew their own weapons, ready to attack when...
Don't think so.
With a hiss of metal and a flash of light, his sword drove itself into one of the attacking men. Nagakura's strike slid between the gaps in the man's armor, and with a cry he collapsed to the dirt.
One down.
He grinned. Better hurry. Are these the Furies? The man he just killed broke into a cackling laugh. Nagakura stared at him, stunned, and in that moment the soldier leapt higher into the air than Nagakura was tall and swung his sword down in a great vicious arc.
What the hell?
He caught the blow on his sword and threw the man off, but he was clearly shaken.
I stabbed him right in the gut. Nobody could stand up after that. They've got to be...
As if on cue, the enemy soldier's hair changed color, from black to white.
Furies. How do they have Furies?
Rarely had I seen Saito so surprised.
Damn it, what's going on here? I thought Furies couldn't handle the sunlight.
One after another, the red-eyed Furies ran into the line of the Shinsengumi soldiers, their swords flickering in the midday sun. Our men tried desperately to fight them off, but they had neither the experience nor the technique to stand their ground against the strength of the Furies. Go for the heart, guys! Go for the heart!
Help me! Please! Somebody!
The Furies waded in unopposed, bodies falling around them like rain. If the Imperial Army had created their own Furies, then that had to mean... Yep.
This is quite an improvement. I have waited a long time for this day. The day my beautiful children can at last use their full strength in the light of the sun.
Kodo stepped out from the shadows, a grotesque smile stretching across his face as he watched the Furies slaughter men who couldn't hope to stand against them. Amagiri stood next to him, but on his face was an expression much closer to disgust.
No matter how much they have the appearance of the genuine article, they are merely skillful imitations. They may no longer feel the light, but what they are has not changed. A fake will forever be a fake.
And on that note, we are ending this episode. Wow, I thought Amagiri was supposed to be Heisuke's main enemy, but he's showing up a lot in Saito's route. Alright, well, I will continue this in the next video. Hope to see you there or in some of my other ones. And I'd be so grateful for any likes, comments, subscriptions, or shares with your friends to show some support. Thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you all health, happiness, and safety. Dirili signing out. Bye-bye, everybody.